It's time for the Longines Chronoscope, a television journal of the important issues of the hour, brought to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. A presentation of the Longines Whitnor Watch Company, maker of Longines, the world's most honored watch, and Whitnor, distinguished companion to the world-honored Longines. Good evening, this is Frank Knight. May I introduce our co-editors for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope? Larry Lasser, CBS News correspondent, and Kenneth Crawford, National Affairs Editor of Newsweek magazine. Our very distinguished guest for this evening is Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
The North Pole used to be a no-man's land, but these are the days when, by buying a ticket on a commercial airliner, you can fly across the North Pole and drink a cocktail at the same time. Yet only 70 or more years ago, about 35 years ago, our guest tonight
es porque para que la gente más o menos, para ponerla en situación, ¿no es cierto? Recordemos que cuando hablamos de militares en la Antártida, obviamente estamos hablando de la milicia de siempre, de la que es imperialista, conquistadora, que viene siéndolo desde hace siglos atrás, no es algo novedoso, que era la misma que conquistó América. Estamos hablando de de la Marina Británica, de la Marina Española y demás, pero sobre todo puntualmente de la Británica. Entonces, recordemos que hace simplemente 500 años atrás, si bien se sabía que existía América, un montón de culturas tienen evidencia de ello, para el mundo europeo, la propuesta era: hay un borde, te caes, hay monstruos, no se va navegando para ese lado.
Es cierto.
Pero ellos sabían que no había ni borde, ni monstruos, ni nada por el estilo, sino que sí había otras culturas, y primero militarmente vos lo que querés es hacer una exploración y tener todo más o menos atado para conquistar, y una vez que el territorio es tuyo, entonces ahí sí invitas a la gente a que lo poble y obviamente genere infraestructura y todo eso.
Ahora, estamos hablando del siglo XV, ¿sí?
Sí, para nuestra historia, digamos.
Vos sos el vocero en este caso de una teoría que nos pide que creamos lo que creían en el siglo XV.
A ver, nosotros cuando te dicen dónde está el borde, por qué el agua no se cae, obviamente la mente dispara esa secuencia que te enseñan en el colegio bajo esa temática. Pero a lo que yo voy es, en el contraste es lo mismo que sucedía en esa época, sucede ahora con la Antártida, solamente que en lugar de decirte que hay monstruo con 7 cabezas y un borde, aunque algunos dicen de un borde, la realidad es que te dicen que es una esfera y que para qué vas a ir a la Antártida si volvés al mismo lugar. Sin embargo, nunca nadie lo hizo. ¿Para qué vas a ir a la Antártida si en la Antártida no hay nada? Hay pingüinos y esquimales. ¿Para qué vas a ir a la Antártida si hace frío? Pero sin embargo, hay 57 naciones interesadas en la Antártida.
Bueno, ok.
¿Me explico?
Estamos de acuerdo. Hay un motivo por el cual no nos dejan saber, no nos dejan llegar. Acá llegamos a un punto en el que, no te quiero presionar, pero me tenés que dar una teoría de qué hay ahí entonces.
Mirá,
si hay tanto interés en que no lo veamos ni lo conozcamos, es que debe ser como mínimo importante o interesante.
Nieve, para hacer muñequitos de nieve.
Pero si hubiera algo así...
Y agua y petróleo.
Pará.
No serían tan celosos de esa
y mercurio.
A ver, yo lo que te puedo decir es lo siguiente, porque vos sabés que a mí me gusta a mí me gusta la ciencia y me gusta lo empírico. Obviamente sé que para algunas cosas no queda otra que teorizar y dar una especulación, pero también está bueno generar esa teoría en base a recaudar información, porque si no pareciera ser una historia de reptiliano.
Okay.
¿El punto cuál es? El punto es el siguiente: de propia palabra, del mirar a cargo de las 3 operaciones que mencioné anteriormente, y de la única persona que militarmente fue tanto al Polo Norte como al Polo Sur, para una tierra esférica, para nosotros el centro y la periferia, cuando fue entrevistado en televisión, yo acá tengo simplemente un breve fragmento de 58 segundos,
Sí.
en donde esta persona deja en claro cuál es la importancia, más allá de que vos me preguntás por qué tanto secretismo. Si vos llegás y pasás el paralelo 85 y te encontrás con una barrera que figura en la Enciclopedia, que se dice que comienza ahí como una forma de domo, ya eso me parece demasiado secretismo, demasiada evidencia para tener que sostener el modelo cosmológico actual, que es la teoría del Big Bang. Entonces ya ahí me parece que eso es el punto fundamental. Ahora, como el mundo se rige por economía, también hay una cuestión de recursos naturales.
Bien.
Entonces, de propia boca de Richard Byrd, yo sé que usted, maestro, puede leer el subtítulo para la gente.
Lo hacemos.
¿Lo hacemos?
Lo
Ahí va,
hacemos.
ahí va. Esto lo introduce el conductor del programa y después ya habla Richard Byrd.
Esto es década del
Esto
60.
del 59.
59.
Cuando volvieron de la operación
Bien.
High Jump.
Our guest tonight is not only our greatest living explorer,
Ahí está presentando
but he's been
justamente
an
al almirante
inspiration
Byrd.
to countless
Dice, se
Americans.
encuentra vivo. No solamente se encuentra vivo, sino que es una gran inspiración para muchos americanos. Dice el
Admiral
almirante
Byrd, you've
Byrd.
been to both the
Señor
North
Grande,
Pole and the South
almirante, pero usted fue al
Pole.
Polo Norte como al
Is
Polo
there
Sur. ¿Hay
any
alguna tierra sin
unexplored land
explorar
left on
en el
this
planeta
earth that might
que
appeal
pudiera
to
interesar a los
adventurous young
jóvenes
Americans?
aventureros americanos?
Yes, there is.
Sí, sí la hay, pero no en el Polo Norte, porque se está llenando de gente ahora, porque encontraron que es muy útil. Dice este almirante Byrd, no solo para vivir e investigar, también militarmente. Pero es muy extraño que, conociendo cómo es la Antártida, en el día de hoy es un área más grande que Estados Unidos y nunca ha sido vista por ningún ser humano. Y está del otro lado del polo, más allá del Polo Sur.
Ahora, ¿cómo más allá del Polo Sur hay una tierra de la Antártida si el polo es supuestamente un parche circular que está bajo una esfera? Que tenés acceso por Australia, tenés acceso por Sudáfrica, tenés acceso por Argentina.
¿Es cierto?
Es cierto, y el tipo no
El tipo
solamente...
está planteando otra historia.
Otra historia, el tipo está planteando, y por eso hay un gran libro que le recomiendo a la gente, que se llama, escrito por un militar que participó en estas misiones, que se llama El mundo más allá de los polos. The World Beyond the Poles. Ese libro existe, es real y está escrito por un militar. Y es muy interesante lo que dice, porque también habla de muchas cosas astronómicas, de muchos fenómenos astronómicos que se ven en la Antártida y ese tipo. Por eso hay observatorios astronómicos en la Antártida también. Entonces, ¿el punto cuál es? Acá lo termina de decir, dice...
Creo que es increíble que haya un área tan grande que está sin explorarse, dice el almirante Byrd.
Dice,
Así que hay una aventura más allá del mundo. ¿Y espera verlo algún día? Le preguntan. Sí, eso espero.
y se incomoda, ¿viste?
Sí,
Cuando,
sí.
bueno, hay algo más allá del muro del mundo.
Bueno, hay dos nociones ahí que son polémicas. Uno habla de un muro, casi como si fuera Game of Thrones, ¿no? Sería como...
¿viste cómo vas relacionando?
Mirá,
Porque
mirá.
Hollywood usa lo que en psicología se conoce como el primado negativo, que es bombardeante de información real para retrasar tu aprendimiento y que vos digas, nada, pero eso está en esa película, eso está en esa serie. Pero en realidad, el bosque sagrado, Hollywood, bosque sagrado, sabe de estas cosas. Por eso no hay... Los guionistas de Hollywood son también más polémicos que Silvia Zuller, te diría, en la década de los 90. Pero bueno, vamos que habla de más allá. O sea, dos conceptos.
found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States, an area as big as the United States, an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
Well, it's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Admiral, do you hope to see that?
I do.
Well, Admiral,
Yeah.
would you say that since you've been to both the extremities of Earth, are these expeditions to such far-off places, are they getting easier because of modern techniques, or is danger still close at hand?
Well, it's a little risky, but nothing like it used to be with the old slow planes and the small cruising radius where we had to put down bases. We replaced the dog teams, and of course that was a big improvement. But now the planes go much faster and they are safer, and they have a much bigger cruising. But now the planes go much faster and they are safer, and they have a much bigger cruising radius. You haven't got the danger of a terribly heavy load.
Admiral, an expedition to which I believe you're the advisor is now en route. What is that expedition doing?
Well, that's the icebreaker Atka, and it's a reconnaissance expedition. It's going down to the South Pole area to make certain observations and to look for some bases. They will be back in April, and they will report back, and upon the information we get from that undertaking, we will base the bigger expedition that's to follow.
Is that very definitely planned, or is that...
That is being planned right now. So I'm willing to say to you that there will be a number of expeditions that will follow, I think, year after year, at the bottom of the world, because the government has really become interested.
Well, Admiral Byrd, I can understand, I think everybody can, the interest in the North Pole because it's so near our greatest challenger, Soviet Russia. But why this interest in the bottom of the world? Nobody living down there, is there?
No, it's pretty cold. Oh, it's pretty cold. Oh, it's pretty cold. There's only one permanent resident, that's the emperor penguin. The little ones live further north. I tell you one reason they're interested. It's by far the most valuable, important place left in the world for science. That's why the scientific groups all over the nation are really interested. But more important than that, it has to do with the future of the nation, those to come after us, or even during your lifetime. Because it happens to be an untouched reservoir of natural resources. And, you know, as the world shrinks with an ever-increasing acceleration, far-flung places, once useless, like we thought the North Pole was, and no man's land, become very useful. The bottom of the world will be important, not only to us, but to our allies.
I was going to ask you, does it have military importance?
It has some, and as the world shrinks, it will continue to shrink with an ever-increasing acceleration, thus bringing these places closer. And in the future, I can see a time when it will be very, very important strategically.
Well, has the development of air power increased the strategic importance of places like the
very much
Palmer
so.
Peninsula, we'll say?
Very much so. Even now, if anything happened and we lost the Panama Canal, we would have to control the islands just north of Antarctica. We would have to control the islands just north of Antarctica. We would have to control the islands just north of Antarctica. We would have to control the islands just north of Antarctica, which are part of Antarctica, which are part of Antarctica, which are part of Antarctica. And between there and Cape Horn, people. So you can stow it down to the Antarctic, and against the lean years, and you wouldn't have any people in the world really starving if you did that.
Yes, in the event of an atomic war...
You stay there forever.
In the event of an atomic war...
You stay there forever.
In the event of an atomic war...
You stay there forever.
Admiral, you speak of the resources of Antarctica. What are they? What are the natural resources there?
Well, we've found enough of coal within 180 miles of the South Pole in a great ridge of mountains. It's not covered with snow, enough to supply the whole world for quite a while.
Well,
that's the coal. Now, there's evidence of many other minerals. We're pretty sure there's oil. Now, that coal shows the bottom of the world. Now, by far the coldest spot in the world. Where that coal is gets 100 below zero in the winter.
Well,
it was once tropical. So we think there's oil there, and there's evidence, probably uranium there.
Is it any secret? Is there uranium there? That would be the only thing that would be practical to actually go after, I suppose. Everything else would be economically unfeasible, wouldn't it?
Well, as we recklessly expend our resources, the time will come when we'll have to go after that stuff down there. Well, you know, I avoided what you said about uranium. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to have the world fighting over the Antarctic.
And Robert, is there a competition among other nations to try to get information about Antarctica and possibly to secure some of these resources?
Well, yes. There are now 7 nations very much interested. Russia is interested tremendously. That I'm sure of. Australia has an expedition down there. The Argentine, the Chile, New Zealand, Britain, and so on. Now, you can understand those people down there being interested because they live down there, the New Zealanders, the Argentinians, the Chileans, and Australians. And so we don't do much about claiming anything.
Admiral, you make this sound a little crowded. Are there that many expeditions now there or en route there?
Well, you know, as I said, it's the most peaceful place in the world, but I don't think it will be for long because of this intense interest on the part of other nations and this nation.
Well, Admiral Byrd, are private expeditions a thing of the past? Is expedition and exploration, making expedition and exploration now purely a government function because of the tremendous cost and organization?
No, I don't think so. I think down south it may be more or less a thing of the past, but not other expeditions that go there. A lot of them go north now.
This latest expedition now on the way is a government expedition, I take it.
Yes, that's the government.
Byrd, may I ask you, is there a great difference between the top of the world and the bottom of the world?
There is. Now, the North Pole is the center of an ocean 10,000 feet deep. The South Pole, the center of a plateau, 10,000 feet high. The North Polar Sea is surrounded by continents slightly frozen. The Antarctic continent is surrounded by a belt of ice, frozen seas of at least 1,200 miles thick. Now, the south is a plateau. It gets, in some places, 14,000 feet up. I've been over areas about 13,000, and it's a little bit chilly up there. So there's that big difference between the top and bottom of the world. The north really isn't very cold up there on the Arctic Ocean.
Not compared to the south. Admiral Byrd, we often hear it said that our young Americans now aren't as hardy as their forefathers. Do you think that Americans do measure up to the standards, the physical standards and morale standards of the past?
I do. I don't believe that. I think they're just as hardy.
Well, what would you say was the most valuable factor on an expedition? Is it morale, or physical courage, or is it sheer equipment?
Well, I've always thought that loyalty was by far the most important. Trait. The British told me that when I first went down in 28, that I couldn't possibly get through the winter night without a mutiny if I took more than 20 men. But to serve science, I had to take 42 men. Then I took 56 the next time. and so on. So, and I did find that loyalty was the most important thing during the winter night when it's very hard on your nerves. I think that's best trait.
That's a very valuable characteristic at any time. Well, thank you very much, Admiral Byrd. It's been a great pleasure to have you here tonight.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
The opinions expressed on the Longines Chronoscope were those of the speakers. The editorial board for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope was Larry Lasser and Kenneth Croft. Our distinguished guest was Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
I don't know my name. I don't play by the rules of the game. So you say I'm just trying, just trying.
Hay que organizarse de otra manera, no sé. Ya no se puede contar con los políticos, eso lo decimos hace años. Los políticos y la democracia está maniatada a la dictadura del dinero. Eso no es ninguna novedad, ¿no? Lo que pasa es que hoy en día más y más y más gente está sufriendo esa dictadura del dinero. Dilo a toda la gente que están echando de sus casas y está así el patio. La solución está ahí. Hay que parar de votar por impresentables. No hay otra, digamos. Y que el voto en blanco sea reconocido también, ¿no? Yo creo que sería importante que el voto en blanco sea reconocido como voto, porque sería muy rápidamente la mayoría. Y el mensaje sería que hay que renovar toda la clase política de A a Z.